Well, today the Prime Minister is going to pledge an extra £1 billion a year to increase the number of GP appointments.
And Sir Keir Starmer is going to tackle the tricky topic of immigration today as he announces plans to cut net migration, as questions are raised over whether Labour is offering peerages to some MPs to step down.
Lib Dems, focusing on the NHS, they're promising to reverse Tory cuts to the health system.
And the SNP will launch their Westminster campaign as leader John Swinney promises to put Scotland's interests first.
And let's talk to political commentator Owen Bennett. Morning to you, Owen. Look, I think the one that's going to grab most people's attention first off today is Labour, because they are trying to get their heads round. Well, it's not just immigration, it's the legal net migration figures, which often sort of get a little bit ignored because we focus on the small boats. But net migration is huge. Keir Starmer says he will bring it down. Do we know how?
Yeah, net migration, I think it's the second highest level on record the last time the figures came out. I think that his focus is that if you are an employer and you offer a job to a migrant, you have to have demonstrated, first of all, that you could have offered it to a Brit, and he's putting in training schemes. And he's also going to be quite harsh with people who exploit this, and he's saying you're not going to be fined, you're going to be banned from hiring overseas workers. So his way is basically trying to encourage more jobs to go to Brits. Now, we've had this before. We've had Rishi Sunak talking about things like this, talking about how we've got people who are economically inactive, I believe is the term, and trying to get them back into work. But what Keir Starmer's not done is he's not put any figures on this. We all remember David Cameron getting net migration down to tens of thousands, which got more and more ludicrous every time the figures came out, and it was further and further away from that. So Keir Starmer's not fallen into that trap.
No, it's interesting. We've seen them all launch their battle buses yesterday, getting around the country. I suppose that's always an important thing just before an election. We've seen Starmer and Rishi Sunak argue before, haven't we? Obviously, at Prime Minister's questions. But they're very different at the moment on the podium in front of people, aren't they? Who do you think is the more impressive?
Well, neither of them are particularly amazing orators, are there? We're not looking at people that are going to be studying their speeches for years to come. So I don't think, neither are like kind of Nigel Farage style pizzazz, for example. I think that the trouble that Rishi's got is that he has to attack Labour a lot more, and therefore he can be seen as coming across as slightly negative. Whereas I think Labour can just sit back a little bit and they can be slightly more general over things. So, Rishi Sunak's stump speech is very much Labour haven't got a plan, and now he's shifting it to, well, actually, As Lorraine's the one who's really in charge, and just look at the Dan Abbott row, and that's the evidence for that. But I don't think anybody's going to be, for the rest of their life thinking, do you remember that day that Rishi Sunak and or Keir Starmer came to our constituency? What an amazing speech they gave. JFK, these people are not.
No, well, you could well have a point. In terms of the Tories, they're saying they're looking at the health service in all of this. But what seems to be the crux of it all is saying, well, actually, you can do a lot more at the pharmacy. Go and see your pharmacist for a whole load more things, and they'll sort you out without having to even try to get a GP appointment. I have to say, what strikes me with that is, what are the pharmacies getting out of it all? Because they've been complaining for a long time, and the National Pharmacy Association, that the contracts aren't worth the money they're written on nowadays, that a lot of them saying they just can't survive. So a higher workload for your pharmacist isn't necessarily a good thing.
Absolutely, and there's been cuts to pharmacies across the country. And are you just shifting the bottleneck? Are you saying instead of you're standing for hours trying to get something at the GP, you're now going to be waiting even longer at the pharmacy? I think the trouble with this policy is that he seems to have found an extra sort of £1 billion down the back of the sofa, and people go, hold on a minute, you're promising this £1 billion for us tomorrow. Where was it yesterday? You said you're going to get it through cutting down on NHS middle management. Well, why didn't you do that for the time you're in power? Why is it taken now? So I think that people are going to treat this policy with a slight degree of disbelief, perhaps, because the argument would be, well, if you could have done this earlier, why didn't you? But it's interesting, isn't it, that the day that Labour tried to park their bus on the Tory lawns of immigration, you see the Tories trying to come back on NHS. So today's the day where they're sort of venturing into each other's halves of the football pitches, if you like.
I mean, I think the reaction from a lot of our viewers is that this is just election talk, isn't it? They're very cynically bringing in things that actually, as you say, some people feel they should have brought in years ago. And the minute Labour open their mouth, you can't trust what they say either. And it's almost as though we have to endure this period of election speak.
And I have no idea you are so cynical, thinking that politicians would just say whatever they wanted to get good headlines. But I think you're right. And actually, let's be honest, we've been through so many of these things in recent times, elections and referendums and leadership contests. We've all heard this so many times. And most of us now, as you said, GB News viewers, know that let's just wait to see what's in the manifesto. That's a slightly more reliable document. But yes, a lot of this stuff, people just go, oh, all right then, okay, sure, yeah, we'll see it when you deliver it.
Yeah,
what are you looking for?
I was just trying to find a comment. I can't remember what paper it was in. There was a comment about Ed Davey, because I wanted to mention the Liberal Democrats.
Yes.
I don't know if it was in this, or it might have been the Express. I don't know. But it was sort of saying, it was going through what all the various party leaders are doing, but then saying, Ed Davey's been seen playing with, like sort of soft play in water parks and all this sort of thing. He looks like he's on more of a school trip than a political campaign. Has he got it right, do you think, or has he got the balance wrong?
Well, it's all about cut-through, I think, with the Lib Dems. And this is what Nick Clegg did in 2015, isn't it, when the coalition came to an end? He was round, Joe 8 swinging on zip lines, and it didn't do any difference to them. They were absolutely decimated in that election. So I can sort of understand Ed Davey's tactic, like if we can just get a picture on the front page of the paper every now and then and me doing something slightly different than standing in front of a bus, maybe it'll get some cut-through. I thought it was interesting today that Ed Davey, I think, was taking a day off to spend time with his son, and I really thought that was interesting and honest and actually something people would like. He's gone, you know what, someday I want to spend time with my family, and he's been quite open about, he has to give a lot more support to his family. I think that's you're probably going to have a bit more resonance with people than some of the speeches and promises coming out from the other leaders.
Yeah, maybe. Owen, thanks very much indeed. I found this isn't exactly what I was looking for before, but I found it's in the Sunday Express. Lib Dem leader Sir Ed Davey provided plenty of photo opportunities, falling off a paddleboard, plunging down a water slide. One wag suggested he should try being fired out of a cannon, to which the Lib Dem president, Mark Pack, replied, please don't give him any ideas.
But it is almost as though he's just playing for the picture, isn't he?
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, I just find it a bit odd.